back to another episode of the Between Homes podcast. I am your host, Robbie, and today it's just a great day on the Pacific Ocean. What a difference 72 hours can make. We're going to get into that, but before we do, a little captain's log for you today. Thank you for joining us. You know, you don't have to be here, and you could have already stopped listening, but you haven't, and I appreciate it. Dial in those compasses to 18 degrees north, 24 minutes. By 103 degrees, 42 minutes west, we departed a little marina called Las Hadas this morning. If you are keeping up with the show, you know that we planned an 8-day cruise to Chiapas. What happened? Bad weather happened. Today, the seas are maybe cresting over 2 feet tall. That was not the case 2 days ago. We had the worst weather I have ever experienced on a boat. Now, granted, my experience was small, but everybody on the boat was a little turned up, and we are gonna get their impressions of it today. Winds topped out at 45 knots. Now, I'm not sure if you know a good gauge of wind or not, but just think whipping winds. And what happens when you're in the middle of the ocean and the winds start whipping? The waves start growing. We had about 8 to 10 foot swells. For perspective, I'm sitting up here on the helm. That's about as tall as I am. Do you see the water below me? Think about the tops of waves being over my head as I sit on the deck. When you were at the bottom between two waves, you could see nothing but water on either side. Not a situation I enjoyed at all. I was seriously minorly considering, what a life would look like if I just dove headfirst off the back of the boat and didn't tell anybody about it. It was rough for a little bit more than a day. It was a terrible, terrible time. And it's crazy because the wind dies down, the oceans are calm again, and everybody's back in a great mood. My dad wasn't having it. Alan said he wouldn't choose to be out in it, which is big for him. Chris is a fisherman, so of course he was talking about how he's fished in way worse, all this, all that, whatever. The tick measuring contest continues. We had to stop because it was gnarly. And here's the thing. We wanted to stop sooner because the winds were forecasted for about 20 to 25 knots. It kept going. It got to 20, 25 a little early, then it kept going to 30. It was 35 gusting higher, and then at that point we all decided, hey, we want to stop. But the problem was we were pretty far away from shore, and the surf on any cove or beach we would have tried to enter would have been too much for the boat. We were in reality stuck out to sea. We just had to wait out the storm, and it was not a fun place to be in. Needless to say, when the seas did finally start to calm down, we got about a 6-hour window where the waves calmed down and the winds calmed down long enough for us to be able to pull right back into shore. That's the town of Manzanillo. We stopped below the little marina of Las Hadas, where we ended up, and it was sweet, sensual release. We are finally getting down in latitude. It is tropical. You can say that. Today was the first day that I did not put on a shirt until I put on this beautiful podcast shirt. And it was hot. It was hot. It was real hot in Las Hadas. I don't know what I'm talking about today. It's a little hectic on the podcast. We still haven't talked about what happened when we were in Cabo, which feels like so long ago. I guess it was almost a week ago now. 5 days? I went scuba diving for the first time in my life, and it was fantastic. If you've never been scuba diving, I cannot think of an activity that I would recommend more. Short of maybe skydiving, another thing I could put in the group would be riding a motorcycle. Those things were awesome. The sensation of breathing under the water is unmatched by anything I've ever experienced before. That's before you even get to the fish, which seemed so unbothered by us, swimming around in and amongst their little homes. They just were kind of floating with the motion of the ocean. And ain't that a damn good way to be? Everything's better down where it's wetter, under the sea, where I was. It was an experience that probably would not be legal in the United States. I showed up to a little dive boat with a guy who asked me if I could do the safety briefing in Spanish, to which I said maybe, but I don't think I'm going to entiendo much of it. And he was like, okay, hold on. So he found somebody who spoke English. They came back. They gave me like a 20-minute talk on like, when you get down there, make sure to pinch your nose, equalize your air, whatever you do, don't take the thing out of your mouth, and okay, we're ready to go. That was it. Then we got on the boat, we went out, and next thing I knew, I was in the ocean and I was scuba diving. I will say, for credit for my mom, who is the only person listening to this, hi Mom, there was somebody with me at all times, and I did feel incredibly safe. We only went down about 15 to 30 feet. That was more than enough for me. But there was never a point in time where I was too deep that I couldn't swim up to the surface if I wanted to, which made me feel relaxed. I did start coughing. I choked on something. I don't even know what. The air that comes out of a scuba dive tank is super pure oxygen, so it doesn't feel like you're breathing regular air, but, I mean, you get everything you need out of it. Something about that started drying out my throat, and I felt the urge to cough, and I'm just about 20 feet underwater going, oh boy, this is not the time to do this. The other great thing about Cabo was that we all, and I mean all of us, got to take our first showers in 5 days. If you multiply that around the boat had gone a combined 20 human days without a shower, and it was probably smelling like it. Here's the funny thing about being out to sea on a catamaran. Nobody notices. Like, it's kind of like when you have a dog and the dog smells in your apartment, and people come over and, oof, what is that dog smell? You're living in it every day, you don't really notice it. The smell wasn't super bad. Chris, can we talk about the rough seas? Here's Chris. Okay, I need you, okay. Chris makes me feel like a bitch when we talk about this because... No, you know...
Here you go. All right. Do I sound okay? Because I don't have any... What's beeping?
Yeah, you do sound fine.
Hold on. You keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay. Right. We have boat problems. Big sail problems. Chris has to go deal with it. All right, he'll be back to talk about it. Maybe Alan, can you come talk about the rough seas? Into the microphone. Yeah, we're doing a podcast. It's a little bit disjointed today on the podcast, but I want to get the rest of the crew's reaction. We're having low voltage problems. Everything's going on. This is probably an episode to watch on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, there's probably a lot that doesn't make sense to you right now, and I'm going to try and keep it short today. While they're figuring this stuff out, we'll finish on Cabo. How does that sound? Scuba diving was awesome. The showers were awesome. Here's one thing that I didn't expect. In the beginning of the trip, I was getting very seasick, and I have totally found my sea legs now. I feel completely fine and natural on the boat when it's not 10-foot waves and all that wind. When it's a day like today, I might as well be on land. After the first stretch of our 5 days at sea, getting back on land, I got off the boat and I was having a hard time balancing. They call it land legs. And it happens because your brain at sea is not exposed to any vertical lines. So when you get back on land, if you look at the side of a building or if you look at a tiled floor, you start to get dizzy because your brain has not encountered any straight vertical lines. And if you look around, everything is curved and there's no walls to look at. So I get it. I didn't know that. Land legs were a thing, and they were a thing that hit me. And now the topic of discussion can change from land legs to the ocean.
Land legs. Oh, that's a good topic, actually. Land legs is funny. I've seen people have really funny land legs. Shout out Sam Wood. And
Sam Wood.
He had land legs in Trader Joe's in Portland, Maine that, you felt it the first time you got right off the boat, right? You were like, oh, wow, I still feel like I'm on the water.
Yeah, you do. It's almost more pronounced than when you're on the water.
In a way, well, you get used to everything being in motion, and then everything stops. So when everything stops, that's fucked up. Here, I'm taking your picture.
Oh, you're taking my picture?
Did you look behind you?
Oh, wow. This is a nice helm cast.
Yeah.
If people could only be so lucky as to go to our YouTube channel at Between Holes and watch this live playback of the episode.
Where's the camera on this one?
It's right back there. We got your back to the camera right now. Oh, here comes all crew.
Yeah, everybody's here.
The whole crew is here.
I feel like Bob Barker on The Price is Right. I can.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
this is awesome.
Gentlemen, we need to talk about the worst storm that has ever been encountered on the ocean ever.
Ever by? You mean us?
By I think anybody.
By anybody?
We were
by anybody.
No, it's probably the worst we have since we live from California. 35 to 40, 45 knots on gust with 10 to 15 feet sea.
10 to 15 feet.
They got bigger. They got bigger since we were out there. You know,
Yeah.
when we were out there, it was like 8 to 10. But now that we're back, it's 10 to 15.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know,
That's a good charter captain right there.
Yeah, sailor and fishermen are all the same.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's true. I was out there. Me and Alan are out there, and basically, so the conditions the other day, we left in pretty steady winds with pretty steady waves, and it built throughout the day. And we had to round a point, which always makes the wind and the waves more intense. So as the day went on, and as the afternoon went on, the swell really picked up, and the waves and the winds picked up together. So, and that's a harmonic condition that happens around the point. It's sort of like, you know, people talk about rounding Cape Horn or the Cape of Good Hope, you know, when they do on these epic circumnavigations. We got just a little mini taste of that, and you know, it was interesting. It made things. It
was not interesting. It was terrible.
Well, you were. Let me point out a couple things. One, the boat was completely safe, and we were safely sailing. Okay, everything. The boat was completely fine, and we could have kept sailing.
That's what you guys
in those
lead me
conditions.
to believe.
And no, that wasn't overwhelming. Nothing about that day was overwhelming this boat. This boat was totally fine out in the weather and it's made for it. Honestly, it really is. You know, and so Alain was with your dad delivering the Lipari with the previous boat from Bermuda to Philadelphia, or to the Chesapeake Bay rather, Newport. And so you guys really encountered what was way more kind of epic conditions for a few days. But again, the Lipari was fine. The boat was fine. It was just immensely uncomfortable to be on the boat.
Yes, sure. We were crossing from Bermuda to Newport, Rhode Island, and we encounter a rough wind from west, and we crossed the Gulf Stream. That makes some crazy sea.
How big were those seas?
We were above 12 feet.
20 feet?
12.
12 feet, 12
yes,
feet.
12.
So was it the same size as the other day or bigger than that?
Bigger but less ordered.
The period.
Yes, the period, because we were crossing the wave was coming in a way, and they were crossing the Gulf Stream. So it makes choppy sea with 12 feet wave, so not very fun and comfortable to sail.
Really diving down and up again.
Yes.
So, okay,
we were lucky the other day. We were lucky the other day because we were going downwind. And the only time we had to really slam into the swells was the one time that we turned around and take in sail. That was it.
Yeah,
yes.
This is true. I was comatose in the bed the entire day. I don't know what they did.
Here, hold on. That's not true. You know, after a while, things said, okay, me and Alain were up here, and you and your dad were indeed comatose below for the roughest of conditions.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
eventually
that's
you
for sure.
both were up here, and eventually you both took a shift in what were pretty stiff waves and wind.
Yeah, but
you both did really well. Honestly, it just takes a little getting used to. It seems weird when the waves are that high and the wind is that up. But again, these vessels and sailors are made to do this. This is what passage making is about, really. You have to, we're lucky. We're doing coastal sailing. We could ditch it pretty much any time. Even though there's some places along the way we might not want to ditch, we could for weather, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's not like a place we would want to hang out for the night, but it's a place we could anchor for the weather. But think about going like what Alan and your dad were doing, Bermuda to Newport or France to Newport, for God's sakes. There's nowhere to stop. So when the weather turns a bit south or sour, you have to adapt to it and just sail through it in a lot of conditions. And these guys are delivering boats. They don't have enough gas on board to motor across the Atlantic, so they literally have to kind of sail. I mean, you can conserve gas and motor on one engine and low RPMs and all that stuff and take a long time, but you kind of have to sail.
Okay, everybody tell the worst sea conditions that they've ever been in story.
The worst.
The worst you've ever experienced.
The worst.
It was along the Portuguese shore. It was in 2015. The boat was a mile 36 catamaran. The wind reached 60 knots. 60 was in meter 6 to 8, so 20 to 28 feet. The period was maybe 20 seconds, so maybe 200 yards between each waves. So yes, but but the period was so long, so 200 yards between each
200 yards, but you're going up a 3-story building every time.
Yeah, the mast is on this is what, 70 feet, so it'd be half as tall as this mast. The mast is 70 feet on this boat, so it'd be half as tall as the mast.
No,
That's
one-third.
crazy.
Yeah, one-third.
That's not right.
Now it's a third. That's
25 feet.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Okay, Chris, what about you? What about the worst weather you've ever been in?
Oh, I went on a fishing trip that was going on from Point Pleasant, New Jersey to Block Island, Rhode Island, right? And we left Point Pleasant, New Jersey what they do is you leave the dock in Point Pleasant, New Jersey at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and by 4 or 5 a.m. you're off the windmills at Block Island and you're fishing. And you fish all day and then you go back to Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I pay like, $250 usually for that trip. It's a 24-hour trip. And so I went on a 24-hour fishing trip up to Block Island, and the boat left usual time. Conditions were marginal. The captains are really good about canceling. You know what I mean? They do not
Safety first, but
also like people want to have. Captains are committed to everybody having a good time. And there's families on these trips, so particularly bad weather, even though you can fish in it, is not comfortable. Just like the other day, it's not very fun to be out in.
No.
So we went out and started out maybe 6 to 8 feet, turned into 18 to 20, 25 feet.
Yeah.
And we got up off, and that was in the night. So it was the black of night, and they're still trying to make time north to Block Island to still run the trip. And we are like slamming and surfing. I go out on these boats that are about 100 feet long, and they're all aluminum, and they have 3 huge Caterpillar engines in them, and they go fast, man. I mean, they try and go fast.
Oh.
Because, again, you're paying to get up there and fish, not paying to take a boat ride. So,
right.
Anyway, we got up there. It was.
Was there an inside of the boat? Was there a cabin that you guys could?
Cabin inside, and that's the thing. Like, it's a bad day when the fishermen are inside the cabin. You know what I mean?
Oh my God!
If the fishermen are inside the cabin, it's horrendous, and it was horrendous. So eventually, we got up to the spot. Conditions were horrendous. Nobody could fish, and then we had to go all the way back in the same conditions. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal.
Oh.
When it was usually a 24-hour trip, it took us 30. They would add on an extra 12 hours. I mean,
oh no!
And in the worst conditions, no control over the boat. You're just huddled in the cabin the entire time.
Oh no!
With fishing equipment and bait. It was just awful. You know what I mean?
That sounds terrible. So, could you even get any sleep, or was it not really a sleeping thing?
I mean, I can usually fall asleep anywhere, but there was nowhere to sleep because everybody was crunched in the cabin.
Oh, right.
Ridiculous.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Those kinds of days are not awesome. But sailing-wise, honestly, like I've been in bigger seas than we were in the other day on smaller boats than this, and in the Pacific, like a 26-foot Catalina off San Diego, in pretty much just a little bit bigger than we were in the other day. Let me tell you, a monohull in those conditions is terribly more uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Oh,
Alan, why is a monohull worse than a catamaran in high seas?
So when you sail downwind, the catamaran stay flat on the sea because he had two hulls. Monohull, they had a keel. And when you go downwind, usually they want to take some list on one side and then come back quick.
that twisting motion.
Like
That twisting motion on top of the wave, you know?
Yes.
It jerks you left and right, every wave. Ah.
So it's definitely more comfortable to be on what we were on in the seas than on a monohull.
Oh, yeah.
when you sail downwind.
It was undoable the other day in a small monohull.
No.
That was
Yes.
a small craft advisory.
Yes.
Interesting.
But when you beat the wind, it's more comfy to be on a monohull because the keel give you more drag, so you're drifting less and you have some momentum, so that prevents you to get stopped on the
When
wave.
you're going up into the wind.
Into the wind.
Into the wind is better on a monohull. Interesting. But it's still not comfortable, is it?
It's more comfy than on a catamaran.
Okay. But is downwind always still the best?
Yeah, it's more from broad to downwind. It's the more comfy usually. On flat sea, you can do some reaching up to 60 degrees to the wind, but
Yeah.
the sea have to be more or less flat.
I see. Or else the sails. I can see what would happen. We've been really lucky with the flat with going downwind the entire time on the trip so far.
Yes, it's more like a trade wind sailing trip than yes, it's usually along the coast of California and Baja California at this season. The wind blow from northwest along the shore, so
And that's why you were saying why this was the best time of year to do the trip.
yes,
Interesting.
people who do this passage say the best season is April to June. Sorry.
April to June. Okay. And that is exactly, we are in April right now.
We're the 18th of April, so we're a little late on our schedule, but we're gonna make some distance on the coming days, so we're gonna
Yes.
catch up some time. I hope.
I think that the stop we made in Las Hadas was very, very worth it. After the rough day, I needed the day.
We all deserve it, and it was a good spot to stop. So
Yes. All right. Oh, what's going on with the camera?
low bat.
Low battery? Well, the battery just died in the GoPro, which means this is podcast exclusive only content. And it's exclusive content enough for me to just say that was another episode of the Between Holes podcast. We'll be back at it tomorrow with more shenanigans.